Once upon a time, in the very beginning, when the world was still new and everything was being made, God was taking a little break from all his creating. He'd just finished making the mountains and the valleys, the rivers and the trees, the birds and the bees, and now he was sitting back, looking at all his work, and he was very pleased with himself. But then he looked down at the flowers and he noticed that they were wilting because there weren't any bees to pollinate them. You see, God had made the flowers before he made the bees, and he knew that they needed the bees in order to reproduce and create more flowers. So he thought, I guess I should probably make a bee. Now, God was pretty good at making animals. He'd already made all the dinosaurs and the elephants and the monkeys. But he wanted this first bee to be special, so he put a lot of love into its creation. He gave it soft, fuzzy hair, so it would feel nice and warm to the touch. He gave it wings that shimmered like rainbows, and he gave it a heart that was as big as the sun. When God finished making the bee, he looked down at the flowers and he said, "Hello, my new friend. Will you help pollinate these flowers?" The bee buzzed happily and said, "Of course I will." It was so happy to have a purpose, and it immediately got to work. The bee flew from flower to flower, collecting pollen and spreading it around. And after a while, all the flowers started to bloom again, and the world was even more beautiful than before. God looked down and he smiled. He knew that he had made the perfect bee. The bee lived a long and happy life. It flew all around the world, visiting every flower it could find. And as it flew, it made other bees. And so the bee became a kind of animal that there were many of. And all the bees lived happy lives, flying around and pollinating flowers. They collected pollen on their furry bodies and spread it around as they flew. And because of the bees, the flowers reproduced and the world stayed beautiful. The bees were so important that God even gave them a special gift. You see, when the bees collected pollen, some of it would always fall off them. And when that happened, God would take that pollen and turn it into honey. And the bees would collect the honey and store it in their hives for the winter. The honey was not only food for the bees, but it was also a gift for us humans. You see, sometimes when the bees would fly around, some of the honey would fall off them too. And when that happened, the bees would leave the honey for us to find. And we were so grateful for the bees and their sweet, sweet honey. We loved the honey so much that we even kept bees ourselves. We built them hives and gave them all the flowers they could eat. And in return, they gave us honey and helped pollinate our crops. It was a perfect arrangement. But then one day, something terrible happened. The bees went away. They left their hives and they never came back. And without the bees, the flowers stopped blooming and the crops stopped growing. The world was slowly becoming a sad and hungry place. And that's when God decided that he needed to talk to the bees. He sent an angel up to heaven to bring him one. And when the angel returned with the bee, God asked it, "Why did you leave your hives?" The bee was very sad and it said, "We didn't mean to leave. It's just that we're not happy anymore." God was very surprised. He had made the bees happy. He had given them a purpose and a gift. So he asked the bee, "What's wrong? Tell me, and I will fix it." The bee said, "We're tired of working all the time. We want to play, too." God thought for a moment. He knew that the bees were right. They needed time to play, too. So he said, "All right, I will give you 1 day a year to play. On this day, you can do whatever you want. You can play, you can explore, you can have fun." And the bees were so happy that God had listened to them. They thanked him and then they went to play. And every year on this special day, the bees still play. They fly all around the world, having fun and being silly. But after they've had their fun, they get back to work. They fly from flower to flower, collecting pollen and spreading it around. And because of the bees, the flowers reproduce and the world stays beautiful. One day, a little girl was playing in her backyard when she saw a bee flying around. She'd never seen a bee before, and she was very scared. She asked her mom, "What's that?" And her mom said, "It's just a bee. Don't be afraid. Bees are our friends." The little girl wasn't convinced. She still thought that bees were scary, so she ran inside and hid. But then she remembered that her mom had said that bees were our friends. And she thought, well, if bees are our friends, then I should help them. So she went back outside and she started planting flowers. She planted all kinds of flowers, and the bees loved it. They came from all around to drink the sweet nectar and collect the pollen, and the little girl was so happy to see the bees. She realized that they really weren't scary at all. They were just little creatures trying to live their lives, and she loved them for that. The little girl continued planting flowers for the bees, and she told all her friends about how wonderful they were. And so more and more people started planting flowers for the bees, and the bees were so grateful. They worked even harder to pollinate the flowers and make more flowers. And because of the bees, the world was even more beautiful than before. The bees were so important that one day a farmer was working in his field when he heard a buzzing sound. He looked up and he saw a swarm of bees flying towards him. He was very scared because he had never seen so many bees at once. But then he noticed that they weren't angry or aggressive. They were just flying calmly towards his field, and that's when he understood. The bees were coming to help him. You see, the farmer grew lots of crops, and the crops needed to be pollinated. But he didn't have enough bees to do the job, so he had called for help. And the bees had come. The bees flew from plant to plant, collecting pollen and spreading it around. And the farmer watched in amazement as his crops started to grow. He realized that the bees were so important. Without them, he couldn't grow the food he needed to survive. And so the farmer started taking care of the bees. He made sure there were plenty of flowers for them to eat, and he even built them a hive. And the bees loved it. They worked even harder to pollinate the farmer's crops, and he was so grateful. He realized that the bees were truly a gift from God. So remember, the next time you see a bee, don't be afraid. Bees are our friends. They help us grow food and make the world a beautiful place. And they're a reminder of God's love for us. He made the bees and gave them a special gift so that we could have honey to eat. And He gave them to us as helpers in the garden. So let's take care of the bees and appreciate all the good things they do for us.